Hi, my name is Gabriela Horvath, and this is my thematic PowerPoint of individual versus the collective. To start off in Unit 1, we have the Apollo stones. This represents the theme of individual versus collective because the patterns on each of the stones have an individualistic and unique pattern on them, which suggests a form of personal expression within a community. The contrast between the individual carvings on these stones and the collective nature of the ancient community really captures the individual versus collective theme because it's really about the ancient community and the individual patterns and art on the stones. There's a balance between individual creativity and the cohesion of a larger group and community within this art piece. Next, we have the statues of votive figures. These represent the theme of individualistic versus the collective because in this piece of art, it depicts individuals, which are worshippers, and they're standing with their hands clasped in a gesture of prayer or devotion. Even though each statue represents an individual worshipper, they are found in a temple context, which suggests a collective religious or communal setting. There's tension between the individual act of devotion and the collective religious context, which can be seen as individual versus collective, because each individual is praying and worshiping to themselves in a collective religious setting. For the Hagia Sophia, this represents individual versus collective because it represents a collective effort and its construction. The building's evolution over time really highlights the collective impact of the various historical and cultural forces of a shared space. There's individual creativity that went into the structure of the Hagia Sophia as individual architects, designers, and people in the community contributed their efforts to designing and creating the Hagia Sophia. So there was lots of interplay between individual creativity and collective cultural identity, which really represented the Hagia Sophia and the changing functions of it. The construction represented the collective function and the group work that was used to create such a piece of the Hagia Sophia. The Burghers of Calais, Unit 4. This structure represents individual versus a collective because this structure commemorates an event during the Hundred Years' War when Calais was besieged by the English. King Edward III demanded the surrender of 6 leading citizens willing to sacrifice themselves to save the city. So in these sculptures, the individual person, who is sacrificing themselves is captured in anguish, and you can really see the sacrifice of each burgher. It highlights their collective decision to offer themselves for the welfare of their own community. If you look into their faces and their poses and their expressions, they're in anguish, they are in desperation because they know their fate, but they have collectively decided to sacrifice themselves for the well-being of the people around them, for the well-being of their city. So the viewers really contemplate the tension between individual identity, sacrifice, and the collective welfare of a community in this piece. Unit 5, Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu represents individual versus the collective because individual contributions were integral to the larger collective of Machu Picchu. Skilled artisans, engineers, laborers, and architects each played their part into the creation of the city of Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu stands as a testament to the collective vision and communal effort of the Incan people. Machu Picchu really encapsulates their culture and their love for the land around them and was brought to life by the individual minds and talents of the artisans and laborers. Machu Picchu's layout and architecture reflect the Incans' deep connection to the natural landscape and their reverence, love, and appreciation for the environment and natural world around them. Machu Picchu now draws visitors from around the world to marvel at its ancient ruins and ponder the ingenuity and collective achievements of the Incan civilization. So this really captures individual versus the collective because the individual talents of the artisans, the engineers, the architects really played their part to contribute to the collective effort and the collective representation of the Incan people and their culture around them. Unit 6, the Golden Stool. The Golden Stool is a sacred symbol of unity and sovereignty for the Ashanti people. The Golden Stool descended from the heavens, and it embodies the collective spirit and identity of the Asante nation. It is believed to house the souls of the Asante people, past, present, and future. So the Asante stool houses the souls of the ancestors of those who have died. So it is the individual souls that are being housed, and it represents the theme of individual versus the collective because it also represents the collective identity, unity, and resistance of the Asante people against external forces, while also symbolizing their cultural heritage and sovereignty. So the individual souls are housed, which represent the collective identity of the Asante people and their heritage and cultural sovereignty. Unit 7, Petra Jordan, Treasury and Great Temple. This captures individual versus the collective because the construction and maintenance of these monumental structures required the collective efforts of architects, craftsmen, laborers, and artisans, which really highlight the collaborative nature of these ancient societies. And individual artisans contributed their unique skills to specific aspects of this architecture itself. The Petra's architectural wonders represents a collective endeavor aimed at shaping and defining the identity of the Nabatean civilization. So it really represents individual versus the collective because it was the individual talents and work that were put into creating this collective art piece that really represented the civilization of the people. Unit 8, the Terracotta Warriors. In this piece, each warrior in the army is individually sculpted with unique facial features, hairstyles, and attire. It showcases the artistic skill and attention to detail of each of the artisans involved. Now, you can see in this piece, there's thousands or hundreds of individual figures. Although there are individual figures, each of the figures were created as part of a larger collective project. It was intended to serve the first emperor in the afterlife and symbolizes military might and power. This massive undertaking of creating thousands of life-size sculptures really underscores the collective commitment to honoring and serving the emperor even in their death. So it captures individual versus the collective theme because of the individual soldiers and warriors there for their collective purpose, all together to commemorate and serve the emperor no matter what. Unit 9, the Nan Madol. This reflects the influence and power of individual rulers within their dynasty. The site is thought to have served as the residence of the ruling elite and as a center for religious ceremonies and political gatherings. The layout and design structure also suggests a hierarchical social structures and the concentration of power among certain individuals or families. The construction involved an extraordinary collective effort by the indigenous Micronesian people, and its construction represents the culmination of indigenous knowledge, technological innovation, and communal organization. So it had the individual rulers of the dynasty and the collective effort of what it was used for ceremonies and political gatherings and things that really honored their people. Unit 10, Vietnam's Veterans Memorial. This really represents the theme of individual versus the collective because this memorial was used as a tribute to honor the individual soldiers who served in the Vietnam War, as well as a collective homage to the nation's veterans. The walls were engraved with names of men and women that were killed or missing during the conflict, and they were arranged chronologically according to the date of their casualty. It emphasizes the individuality of each soldier while creating a collective space for reflection and remembrance. The visitors see their reflections next to these engraved names, and it creates a personal connection with the sacrifices made by those who served in the war. This honors the personal sacrifices of each soldier, of each individual soldier, and each individual person who may have lost their lives during the war, while also acknowledging the broader collective experience of war and its aftermath. Thank you.